being able to put leaders in power and give them enormous amounts of power and have them treat the citizenry right, and they typically tend not to do that. So one of the concerns that I have about these new technologies is that we're giving unprecedented amounts of power, and especially when we start talking about Paris attacks and we start talking about school shootings or whatever it might be, always the clamor is give us more power, give us more surveillance capacity, give us more ability to watch you. But what I think is particularly interesting is in the 20th century, that the surveillance tyranny was exactly that. It was overt. When Stalin wanted to listen to the citizenry, when in the Soviet Union they took over countries and then wanted to know who was grumbling about it, they used a whole network of spies. The KGB used a whole network of spies. The Stasi in East Germany used a whole network of spies. They opened mail. They listened to phone calls. They sent spies to your kid's birthday party to hear if anybody said something disloyal. But and people knew that if they did speak up or if they did oppose the government, that they would basically be disappeared in the middle of the night, and jackbooted thugs would come and kill them. What's happening in the 21st century is a very different form of tyranny. 21st century tyranny comes with a smile and a fistful of coupons. 21st century tyranny is based not on imposing something on the public at gunpoint, but finding psychological methods of manipulating people into choosing the surveillance devices themselves. So, if you think about it, back in the 1970s, I don't know, the Carter administration, had somebody said, every single person in America has got to carry a recording device that can listen in on their conversations and pinpoint their precise location at all times. And anyone found without such a device will be shot on sight. Well, people would have had a fit. We would have had a revolution. We would have had a civil war. Fast forward 30, 40 years, and now we actually have people not only carrying that exact device, but grinning about it, standing in line for hours as these new devices are released so they can get the best one, and paying $600-800 a pop for the privilege of carrying it. So if you're Stalin and you want to figure out how to surveil the populace, it's going to cost you a lot of money to figure out how to go door to door and pound in the doors of frightened people, kids hiding behind their moms' aprons, and women cowering and men holding back to keep from being aggressive, and everybody's afraid as jackbooted thugs come in and put cameras and microphones in people's homes. And that would have cost a lot of money. It would have cost a lot of effort, and it would have created a populace that hated the government. But now today we have people paying hundreds of dollars to purchase drop cams from Google, which is a technology designed specifically to do exactly that. You can actually hang a camera in your own dining room, and you yourself pay money to record the conversations that you have at the dining table and send them onto a server located at Google's distant location where they can peruse what's being said. And so rather than costing money and creating a political destabilization, which would have had to happen in the last century, in this century, you can create the exact same surveillance network, have people love you, and pay you for the privilege so you get rich too. So what's not to love if you're a tyrant about this new form of tyranny where you just convince people that they have to have the latest thing, and the latest thing is exactly what allows you to watch them.
Exactly. And, speaking of just stuff that Google has been purchasing in the last 5 years or so, one of the major purchases they made was for Nest. Some people that are listening to this probably know what the Nest product is. It's a digital thermostat that you can replace your current thermostat with. And it's a smart, there we go again. It's a smart thermostat in that it will allow you to have access to it from the internet so you can control it and do stuff, turn on lights, turn on your appliances, whatever. And the Nest product, which is now owned by Google, of course, it knows your entire energy profile within your house. But even as concerning is that according to the Internet of Things, or the philosophy Internet of Things, Google Nest, the Nest product that sits on your wall right where your thermostat used to sit, can also be programmed to interact automatically with other devices attached to that same Internet of Things in your home, and even outside your home via the internet connection to a smartphone or some other, utility company or whatever, that can reach in and set policies in place that will automatically control your environment without
Yes.
your knowledge.
Yes. So this is the ultimate form of control. In Austin, Texas, which is one of my biggest radio listening audiences, they actually, it's been several years now, probably 8 years now, since they came out with a free digital thermostat. So a lot of people had the old dial kind. In fact, I just had mine replaced, but not with a smart one, quote unquote. But what they did for landlords with apartment buildings who had large numbers of these thermostats is they offered a free thermostat program where if you lived in the city of Austin, they would come in and put a free digital thermostat worth $100 into your living space. And if you were a landlord, they'd put it into dozens or even hundreds of potential living spaces in your apartment buildings. And then in the event of an excessive use of electricity, let's say it's a really hot day and it's 110 degrees out and everybody's running their electricity, they can then send out a signal across the city of Austin, and everyone who has one of these thermostats is going to find their thermostat won't go below, let's say, 90 degrees on that given day, that their air conditioner simply won't go any colder than that. And that's the way that they look at reducing energy consumption on those occasions. The same goes for smart washers and dryers, smart toasters, smart appliances. The idea is that they would be able to reach in and say, we've got a lot of factories and they're using a lot of electricity, and we need to free up the electricity for them because they're the big consumers of electricity anyway, is commerce, is the commercial sector. So we need to reach in and make sure that you cannot run your washer or dryer between the hours of, let's say, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. It doesn't matter how many times you flip the switch, it's literally just not going to turn on if we send the signal out. So this is giving people an extraordinary amount of control over how your appliances function. And talking about Nest, I had another guest on my program who actually is a researcher who, I believe at a university in Australia. And what he did was actually analyze the signals that are being sent from the Nest appliances back to Google. And what he found is that Google didn't tell anybody this, but every single day, every 24-hour period, Google sends a huge block of information. It's encrypted, so nobody knows what it contains, but it sends this information from your home back to Google. And if you watch the online promotional videos for Nest, which are up on YouTube and elsewhere, you can actually see that the Nest the Nest smoke alarms not only are able to detect a fire and set off an alarm, but they actually serve as night lights, which means that they watch you walk around. They have motion sensors, so they know who's walking around at what time of the day or night. They know how many people are in the house based on how many people are walking by at a given time, and they send all of this information presumably back to Google. And Google loves to receive this information because Google is an information gathering company. And before we go too much further, I should mention that a number of years ago, I've been a privacy advocate for 15 years working on these things, and my very first website is up at nocards.org, fighting against supermarket frequent shopper cards, which are really purchase registration cards, but that's a whole other story. I have done probably 2,500 radio and television interviews, so I've done lots and lots of talking about this. And I remember one period back in probably 2008 when a woman listening to me called into the show, and she said, Katherine, you really need to create a suicide hotline. And I said, what? I'm not in that business. I'm a privacy advocate. She said, no, when you tell us this information, it's so horrifying that we are terrified and we need somebody to talk to because it almost feels like it's just pointless to even try to fight against it, and it's so discouraging. And so I took that to heart, and I actually said to myself, here I've been going for 8 years now warning people, but I haven't provided solutions. So in 2009, I actually made a switch, and I began to focus my attention not so much on revealing what was wrong, but on solving the problems. And so I actually helped to create a private search engine that is an alternative to Google, that here's the thing with Google. Google gives you great search results, but its whole purpose is to be bait so it can suck in your personal information. So I helped to create StartPage at startpage.com, which is a private search engine that basically proxies Google for you. So when you go to StartPage, you type in whatever it is you want to search for, your private information, your medical condition, or the fact that you need a marriage counselor, or you're concerned about drug addiction, whatever it might be, really personal stuff. And we then take that information and we submit that question to Google for you. We get the full Google search results. We strip out all the tracking cookies and other things that they would use to monitor you. We deliver those results to you privately at startpage.com, and then we delete all records of your visit, including your IP address. So at the end of the day, we don't even know who's been on our website, and we don't know what they've searched for. And all Google knows is that it got 6 million searches this particular day from who knows who at startpage.com, but they have no idea who those people are. So that was the first thing that I did, because once I realized what Google was doing, I swore I would never again use the Google search engine. And we radio hosts need to be really careful, because we say Google this and Google that. I want to challenge you never to say that again, not that you do, but never say it again to all the listeners, because every time you say Google this, Google that, you're giving this company countless millions of dollars of free advertising. Google is not a verb. It's a big multinational information-sucking octopus, and we should not be using it as a verb. It sounds really cute. They've got nice little colors. All that has been psychologically determined and designed specifically to get you to feel comfortable so you will reveal your information to them, but they're not our friends. So I encourage everybody to stop using Google, remove google.com from your computer, go to startpage.com. You will get the same search results without the surveillance. And then once we had that running for a couple of years, I realized that the other problem with Google is what I was talking about earlier, the email. That Gmail is designed specifically to get you to feel comfortable and put your email onto their servers behind where they can see it, they can get access to it, and they read every single message without exception. So if you talk in an email about your vacation plans or your opposition to a particular political candidate or your concerns about your health, Google is capturing that and making money off of it.
Let me ask a question. Let's just intercede here for a second,
yes.
Katherine. The terms of use with Gmail, actually, that's the one that nobody reads, right, when they set up an account.
Right.
Who reads these pages anyway? But the actual terms of use, when you sign that, click I agree, you actually are giving them the authority. You're telling them specifically that they have the authority to read anything in your email. That basically anything there becomes their property. Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct. And in fact, back in 2004, I and 20 other privacy experts and organizations, including the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Electronic Privacy Information Center at epic.org, Privacy International, the Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, the ACLU, we all got together and we wrote a letter in 2004 to Google saying, you have this idea for this new thing called Gmail, and what you're doing is you're taking the existing email system, which back then, remember, we had Earthlink and Netcom and AOL, and all of those services, including even the Hotmail, which is still around today, all of those services promise you the same degree of privacy that the Postal Service promises you when you mail a sealed envelope, that they promise to deliver your email but never read it. And so what Google came up with was they said it's really great that we have all this information flowing in from this window that tells us everything everybody's thinking all day long, but we really want to know what they're saying to each other, and we can't hack into their email, so how are we going to get it? And they came up with this idea to determine the pain point with existing email programs and figure out how to solve it so that their email would become so appealing that everybody would switch all of the contents of their email over to them where they could read it. And what they figured out, and if you remember back to prior to 2004, the big problem with email was you were always running out of space. right? You'd log on and it would say, your email account is full. Please delete messages so you can receive new ones. Or you'd write to somebody else and it'd say, your mail wasn't delivered because this person's box is full. It was really annoying. So Google at that time in 2004 came out with the idea that they were going to lure everybody over to their service by offering a gigabyte of storage space. And everybody